We are just 1 month away from the Brexit deadline, and negotiations continue to teeter between a deal and no-deal Brexit. In his new book, For the Record, former British Prime Minister David Cameron reflects on his call for the Brexit referendum 3 years ago, and he joins us now here at the Stock Exchange. David, thanks so much for joining us. Great to be with you.
No, good to be on the programme.
I want to tackle that question of the referendum result right at the top, and right in the front of your book, you write, quote, "I'm truly sorry to see the country I love so much suffer uncertainty and division." Your friend and former Chancellor George Osborne, in his review of your book, went further than that. He said, "This is an understatement. David is distraught." Is that true? Are you distraught?
Well, it is very difficult looking at Britain today and recognising we've had 3 years of uncertainty and we haven't been able to go forwards or go backwards, and that is incredibly frustrating. I mean, we're still a successful economy, we're still growing, we've still got very low unemployment, still a great place to invest, but it is frustrating, and that pains me.
But has it been a very painful 3 years? Have you been down, depressed?
Well, I've had a lot of time to reflect on the decisions I made, good ones and less good ones, and I try and reflect that in the book. I'm confident that what we did for the economy, where we got rid of the biggest budget deficit in the world, created over 2 million jobs, 1 million new businesses, that was a success. But obviously we're dealing with the consequences of my losing the EU referendum, and it's very frustrating that 3 years on, we haven't yet resolved the situation. I mean, I hope Boris Johnson's going to go to Brussels, he's going to get a deal, bring it back, take it through Parliament. That's the right way to put into place the result of the referendum. But, it's been very difficult.
The Prime Minister and indeed his Chancellor today reiterated 31st of October, leave on that date, no ifs, no buts. Do you agree that that's the right approach, even if a deal doesn't materialise?
Well, I hope a deal will materialise. And if it doesn't, I mean, as far as I can see, Parliament has legislated that we will not leave without a deal. And I don't think it would be sensible to leave without a deal. It would be bad for the economy, bad for the United Kingdom. So I hope we get a deal. But if we don't, I think we're going to have to find another way of unblocking this situation, possibly through a general election. But I also wouldn't rule out a second referendum. It wouldn't be my first choice. But we are stuck. We can't go on being stuck. And in the end, there are only 3 ways to unstick it. That's to have a deal that Parliament will approve, to have a general election and a new Parliament, or to have a second referendum.
You say in the book that Boris Johnson, quote, left the truth at home with some of his campaigning. And another point in the book, you say outright, leave the campaign was lying. Can the British people trust their Prime Minister?
I think that Boris was an effective Mayor of London. He can be an effective Prime Minister. He needs to focus on getting this deal, and he has my support in doing so. In the book, I try and reflect faithfully what I felt at the time and what I feel now looking back. And there were occasions when the Leave campaign, for instance, by saying you couldn't veto Turkey's membership of the EU, that simply wasn't true. So there were untruths, but I don't complain that somehow the referendum and the campaign was illegitimate. It was backed in a manifesto that I put forward. 9 out of 10 members of Parliament voted for that referendum. I was able to send a leaflet that I poured over every word of to every household in the country to explain why I thought we were better remaining. But in the end, we lost, and that needs to be reflected.
There's lots of criticisms about the Leave campaign that are poured over every day for the last 3 years. Was your campaign perfectly truthful?
I think we told the story as it was about Britain being better off and stronger and safer inside the EU, but we lost, and I think you have to accept that. I'm happy to say that while some of the forecasts we made about the instant impact on the economy sadly have been borne out, we've not been growing as fast as we had been. Some of the other forecasts that were made have not turned out to be the case, and the economy is stronger than some thought. But no, generally, I think we fought a pretty accurate campaign. The trouble was, I don't think it made enough emotional connection with people. We made a lot of good technical arguments, but we didn't take people with us, and we have to reflect on that.
The nation, our nation that you and I share, is clearly in turmoil at the moment. So much so that I think it's really damaging the image of the UK around the rest of the world, certainly from my perspective here in New York. What about the other way round? When you see the division here in the US in its politics at the moment, the possibility of impeachment hearings for the president, is that hurting the image of the US in the eyes of its main allies?
Well, I'm a tremendous believer in the special relationship between Britain and the United States. And I think one of the ways we maintain that is by trying to make sure that whoever's the president, whoever's the prime minister, we make it work. And so I don't try and delve too much into US politics in what I say. But I think it's probably true to say, if you look behind both the election of Donald Trump and the Brexit vote, we're all dealing with some deep undercurrents of people feeling economically left behind, very high levels of immigration that mainstream politicians haven't done enough to deal with. And I think the new media environment where everyone can create their own channel, their own facts, their own truth, their own echo chamber. You know, there's no point moaning and whining about these things. We've got to address them and deal with them. And that's, I think, a task for modern politicians.